Well, the announcement is this. We have spent a good bit of money. We're spending a good bit of money to bring in the Center Consulting Group, of which Dave Marks is a part, to come in here and to help us figure out how to do the kinds of things that I just said, where we're a church that's built up in love. To be the kind of place where we speak the truth and kind of know where are we really at. To be the kind of church where we are unified, not going 8,000 different directions, but saying, how can we have a clear vision that we're all getting behind? And to be a place where everybody that's on the bus is in the right seat and people are equipped so that this church can be all that God has it intended to be. And so the brief story, some of you are probably aware of this in my life, is that 5 years ago I started pastoring here. I took over after a really wise, really experienced, and really humble man. And I'm just me. Pretty inexperienced, not as humble as I wish I was, Luke. And we had COVID, and we had a new baby at our house, and lots of people are new faces, old faces, and I had a lot of ideas, kind of thought this is something I can just power through. Experience in the past year, I don't know how to talk about the word burnout, if it's like, where the deepest burnout or the beginnings of burnout and that kind of stuff are. But I had some of that in myself, took a sabbatical, and as part of that process, not from me actually, from Pastor Doug, my predecessor here, he said, why don't we try to get a consultant in here that can help us and help me to align and just become healthier as a church. And so God bless the leaders around here, Drex and others, who took the bull by the horns. When I was out, they met with people. We met with 3 different companies. We picked the most expensive one, which maybe you don't want to hear, but I didn't really want to hear either because I thought maybe I'm not worth the most expensive one. But after we picked the most expensive one, an individual donor came in to say, I'll cover half the money of the most expensive one, which to me says God's doing something here. And so there's a lot more to say. There's a lot more details about how we're going to work with them. Dave and I have been in touch already, that kind of stuff. But right now, since he's here to visit from outside of Philly, I'm going to let Dave take over and talk about the Center Consulting Group. And thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Pastor. Enjoyed that message. My name is Dave Marks, and I am with the Center Consulting Group. I've been with the center full-time as a consultant since 2004. Previous to that, I pastored churches, 2 churches in particular, for 30 years. And the first pastorate that I did was in Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania. I remember thinking Jersey Shore was in New Jersey when I first started my dialogue with them. And here they are, 40 miles from here? This is such a beautiful area in Pennsylvania, one of the most beautiful places in the country, that God has placed you as stewards. Now, the center, if we can go to the next slide, over those 23 years that it's been in existence, has had the opportunity to work with over 1,000 different ministries. And one of the things that separates us is that we started as part of a church that said, to whom much is given, much is required. So some of the people in that church said, we want to help other churches to be healthy and to be strong. And so the seed money and some of the early emphasis came from those entrepreneurial, faith-driven, love-encompassed people who said, we've got to go out and help other ministries. So we started a ministry that is nonprofit. But most consultant agencies are privately owned, they're for-profit, maybe it's one guy or 2 guys working out of the back of their car sometimes, well-intended. But we said if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. So we've hired a large team, and I'm just one member of the team that will be helping Kish. And every one of them is highly experienced and highly credentialed to do what we're doing. We believe this is so important. And it comes out of your heart to give, to serve, and to rally around what's going to be happening here at Kish. Now, just a word of clarification. It's not happening to you. It's got to happen with you, right? So we're going to be partnering with you. Just a few weeks ago, one of the pastors I was working with in another state, he said, you know, what I found working with the center over these years is that he was speaking about me, but I think he was speaking about all of the people that serve on our team. He said, Dave is like a pastor to pastors. And we love the church. We believe in the church. Now, the church's mission, pretty universal, actually, when you read the New Testament. But every church is different, isn't it? It's got its own DNA. It's not like the church down the street. It's not like the church across the country. God made you unique because he brought you specifically to this ministry to do something of significance in this community. I could not possibly say it better than Pastor said. If you're going to minister and people are going to know it's because of your love for Christ that you are reaching out to them, helping them, identifying with them, then God will do what he said he would do. He'll do his part when we do our part. Isn't that right? Now, there's a little bit of a mantra that we use, and we'll go to the next slide. And there's 3 key words. If you can keep these in mind while we're working with you, it'd be really great. And that is listen, learn, and then lead. And, some people try and lead before they've learned anything, and they end up listening, but it's not to the good things. It's why people are unhappy or unmotivated or unwilling to serve or give or share in their community. So we start with a process that says, let's listen. And the purpose is to correctly assess the current health of the church. And you probably are familiar with the medical model. Now, my brother had a particular viewpoint. He said, it's easy. You wake up every morning, you look in the mirror. If you see 3 of anything, call the doctor. You got 3 ears? Call him. You got 3 eyes? Call him. And that didn't work that well for him, but in the normal medical model, they run tests, right? They have a process. They're assessing. They're feeling around and looking in different spots and, asking questions. They might do x-rays. They do blood work. They do lots of things. Why? Because they want to have enough data points to learn what they need to learn about you. Not just about humanity, but about you. And so we start with a listening process. First of all, we assess every document that you have that we can get our hands on. Minutes, financials, annual reports, past vision statements, all the things that make up the history of Kish. So we spend a lot of time, our team meets regularly to go over what did we hear when we read about your church. And then we say, let's talk to some of the people. So we'll probably do 25 to 30 personal interviews. Some of you will be a part of that. We want to talk to men, women, those that have been here a long time, those that have been here just a short time. Some of you will be a part of that, and I hope that it's a telephone interview that's in depth, it's personal, it's confidential, and we find that sometimes people will tell a complete stranger something they wouldn't tell somebody that they know and love. Why? They don't want to hurt them. But we need you to be honest and transparent with us. That makes sense, right? And so we'll do the interviews, and along with your leadership team, we'll be working on a confidential, individually based, customized survey. So we're going to want every one of you to fill it out online. And again, those results will come directly to me as the team lead on this particular consult. And we will be then analyzing what did we learn from all the data that we read, from the interviews that we conducted, and from the survey. And so what we're doing is we're listening to you. The church isn't the building, and this is lovely, well maintained. Kudos to those of you that do that. You're the church, and we want to hear from you. And here's what we believe. If you're coming to church, you're praying, you're serving, you're part of this fellowship, then God's doing something in your life, right? It's not just static, like, oh, ho-hum, I came to church today. We believe that being a part of a team, a small group, different things, God's doing something in your life, and we want to listen to you. So our first phase is listening, and we'll do that through church assessment. We'll be working with your church leaders, doing a governance assessment, how decisions are made, what principles and practices go into the decision making, how does vision get established, how does ministry unfold in a way that brings synergy, meaning how does it all work together to create momentum. And then we'll be working as part of our assessment with your leadership. I'll tell you, it's a lot different pastoring today than it was 30 years ago. There's a lot of different pressures in a culture that is at such a rate changing, and so many needs that are present in our culture. And so we make ourselves students of the culture. We've got people that do research all the time about what it is that's affecting churches and communities, and we zero in on particularly helping pastors and leaders. So we'll be assessing not only the governance model, but the actual leaders of your church and asking them for input. We'll work closely with Pastor Luke and Ingrid. And we'll be working not only to help them understand the process of what's going on, but to help them personally and encourage them. And that's a gift that you're giving to them through us. Does that make sense? Now, let's move to that second word. It's learn. And it's one thing to collect data. It's another thing to make sense of it, right? You could have lots of data. You could drop it into ChatGPT and say, what does this mean? Well, you'll never be able to add the human element, the emotional element, the spiritual element, and the actual hard facts together to understand what it is that's making Kish Church tick. What does it need to adjust? What does it need to hone? What does it need to change in order to optimize the opportunity that God gave to you? And so in this process of trying to figure out what does the data say, we want to interpret it in a way that makes sense so that we give you recommendations with rationale. What you won't get from us is a list of 200 things that you could plug and play in any church. No. We're going to give you very specific recommendations. Here's what we think you should do to best utilize what it is that Kish is gifted to do, what God's called you as a body to do. And so when we give our report, and we'll give that as a pretty exhaustive, extensive report to your leaders, and then if invited, we'll come back and give a report to you as to what we learned and what we think you should do about that. And then the third step really is that of lead. And we'll go to this third phase of leading. And there's a little graphic there. There's a difference between a flashlight and a laser. We like to use both of those, right? In the listening phase, we shine the light as many places as we can. In the laser part, we say, okay, now that we know what we know, now that we've taken some time to learn something, what do we do about it? How do we change insights into impact? How do we go from just having a great idea into an actual plan for moving forward? And so we'll go to the next slide. And basically, this is the schematic that we use. We say, let's have 3 priorities. If you have more than that, you have the law of diminishing returns, right? If you have too many, you end up doing nothing. If you very much zero in, laser-like, figure out what are the most important things to be doing and how can we combine all the efforts, all the energies towards those things, then you have kind of that blue box, a priority. Now, a priority is more than just a goal. It really has to have strategies. In other words, what are we going to do, but how are we going to do it? That's strategies. And then the yellow boxes are the tactics. Who, when, where, how much? How does it show up in the calendar? How does it show up in programming? And so you begin to see emerge this idea that we're going to be focused on some things, and it's not going to be talk. It's not going to go up like a rocket and come down like a rock. That's what happens. And it's not going to shift from, this quarter to next quarter. Somebody goes to a seminar, comes back with a new idea, and wow, that's what we'll do. No, it's a very stable plan. Then we say there should be some metrics. It's a little bit embarrassing, if I could be quite honest. In a lot of faith-based organizations, they invoke God as if he inspired something when they don't really know that. It's more of a hunch, it's a feeling, it's a desire, it's a dream. Instead of listening, learning, and then helping lead, what they do is it's a little bit like this. They shoot the arrow, and then they go and they paint the target around it and go, wow, look what God did. The truth is, we're not sure what God will bless or what he won't bless. All we know is that God gives grace to the humble, but he resists the proud. We do know that if the body is being equipped, it will be able to accomplish its mission. And so we say, let's not be afraid to shoot at the target. Let's know what the metric is. Shouldn't be any surprise to any of you once the process has been established, what those priorities are. Let's go to this next slide. You can see just a sample of what we're going to be asking you to do during what we call Phase 3, the priority-based action planning process. We do what we call bubbling up. And we're going to invite all of you to come and participate in what's inside getting that out, telling us where those passions are. And we'll use stickies and a whole process. It's a fun morning. Now, we're not trying to lead by consensus. What we're trying to do is lead with clarity. So what we'll be doing in that learning process is now formulating that plan. And we want to be able to answer the 6 big questions. We call it the visible vision. And that basically is to say, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? Are we there yet? And what can I be doing to help? And now this might surprise you. Churches that we work with where 80% of the people that are attending can answer those 6 questions in 20 seconds have great momentum. Here's what momentum is. You take credible leaders, a compelling vision, and the courage to act on that vision, that is to actually implement it and do it. Those churches find great momentum. And if the next slide, so think of it as 3 different priorities, each one having its own strategies, its own tactics. And, a goal without a plan is just a wish, right? We're not interested in just having something fun to say or something that's temporarily exciting to you. We want to say, 3 years from now, 36 months, how will Kish Church be different? Now, here in Pennsylvania, I could give you 30 or 40 examples of churches that this is how they do their priority-based action planning. They did it once with us, and they continue to do it every 3 years. It keeps them on track. It keeps them from getting off onto different vectors or down rabbit holes. It keeps them focused, and they love it. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of, next slide here. This is a church here in the Lancaster area. You cannot come into their church without knowing what their priority-based action plan is. They're on their 5th 3-year plan that we've been working with them over those years. And they've gone from a church of about 300, maybe a little less, to well over a church of 1,000. Well, is that because of the center? No. Is it because they have just such smart leaders? No, it's because the church pulled together around what it was that God was doing within them. There's an author, Henry Blackaby. He said something in his book, Experiencing God, that stuck with me over the years. He said, let's figure out where God's at work and join him there. That's really what we're about. If you could go to the final slide there. Just a reminder, pray for this process. Pray for us as we come alongside of you. And, Pastor said something really interesting. Sometimes truth isn't very convenient. It sometimes hurts a little bit. But I would remind you of a couple of things. One, it's like the laws of the harvest. Some of you may be in farming or agriculture in one way. You already know these. But for those that don't, there's 4 laws. One, you get what you plant. If you plant corn, you don't get carrots. You get corn, right? The second law is you get more than you plant. You don't plant 1 kernel of corn and get 1 kernel of corn. Otherwise, you might as well eat the 1 kernel of corn now. So you plant it and you get much more. So what are you doing? You're investing. When you plant, you are then trusting a different process. And the third law is this. You get it in a different season. You don't plant in the morning and go out and harvest in the afternoon. It takes time to let the vision grow. It takes time to get everything moving synergistically together. And the fourth law is you can't do anything about yesterday's harvest, but you can do something about tomorrow's harvest. The past, and you got some really wonderful elements of your past. I've been studying a little bit about that. Really great, really impressive. That's not today. The future is in your hands. You're the stewards of that. And so I'll just close with a story from my childhood. My parents all grew up in the Altoona area. And my grandfather was an engineer, a railroad engineer, at the Horseshoe Curve. Have any of you ever heard of the Horseshoe Curve? Yeah. So the Horseshoe Curve is it comes out of one mountain and goes into another, and a special engineer boards those trains and drives it around the curve. Then the regular engineer gets in and takes it from there. So that was his job every day, running the trains around the Horseshoe Curve. And if you've been to the Horseshoe Curve, you kind of look up, and there's a picnic ground down there. My grandmother and I would sit down there and watch my grandfather, and then he'd come down for lunch, and then when he was done, we'd take him home, and he'd be black as coal from those steam trains, right? And I don't know why kids do this. I was probably 7 years old. I watched him when he got home from work. A little crack in the door, and I'm watching him, and he takes off his railroad hat. He takes off his toupee. He takes off his big dark-rimmed glasses, takes out his hearing aids, took out his false teeth. And I remember as a little kid thinking, oh, my word, my grandfather's Mr. Potato Head. And sometimes when you see yourself the way you really are, it's a little shocking, like, oh, I didn't realize that. Well, that's okay. He was still my grandfather, even though I could never get over the fact that he reminded me of Mr. Potato Head. So thank you for the privilege of being with you today, and I hope you'll be excited about the process. We're so thankful to be working with you, and be assured of our prayers, and you'll be hearing from us as the days unfold. In fact, we're ready to go now, so it'll be soon.